The 21st century has seen the rise of new major players in the space exploration industry. America's free market policies have allowed private companies to come up and disrupt the monopolies of state-run space programs. One of those plucky upstarts is the American company SpaceX, founded and led by the enigmatic boundary pusher Elon Musk. 22 years after its founding, SpaceX's diverse ventures are beginning to bear fruit as it looks set to become a one-stop shop on all matters pertaining to space travel and communications. However, despite being lauded by many world citizens, SpaceX's ambitions have begun to threaten one of the traditional titans of the industry, Russia. Today's video outlines just what Russia stands to lose to SpaceX's relentless goals. Let's go. It is difficult to say what is impossible, for the dream of yesterday is the hope of today and the reality of tomorrow. This profound quote is just one of the great gems delivered by legendary American physicist Dr. Robert Hutchings Goddard. However, this great saying pales in comparison to his greatest brainchild, rocket propulsion. Goddard's 1926 success in launching a rocket powered by liquid fuel was the seed that would germinate into a near trillion-dollar industry less than a century later. The Germans soon got wind of this new technology and launched, no pun, the world's first large-scale rocket program dedicated to spaceflight. A German V-2 rocket was the first ever to reach space from vertical launch in 1944. By 1957, just over a decade after Goddard's death, the Soviet Union would send mankind's first satellite, Sputnik Y, into orbit. The satellite was propelled to the heavens by a Sputnik 727 rocket, which was based on the R-7 Semyorka, the world's first intercontinental ballistic missile. In 1961, Yuri Gagarin would be the first man to orbit our planet aboard the Vostok 1 spacecraft. 2 years later, the Soviets made history again with Valentina Tereshkova, the first woman to reach space. The 1970s was another great decade for Soviet space ventures. One of the standouts was the Venera program, which successfully landed probes on Venus. Not only that, the probes also managed to get comprehensive data on the planet's conditions, as well as snapping several iconic photographs of the Venusian landscape. Today, Russia is also a core stakeholder in the International Space Station as owner of one of the station's two main sections. All in all, the Soviet and later Russian space industry has earned a tremendous reputation for its innovation, determination, facilities, and launch cadences. Roscosmos State Corporation for Space Activities, the country's space agency, even sells and hires out rockets, launch facilities, satellites, and other resources to other nations, organizations, and even individuals. Even NASA, Roscosmos's chief rival, has enlisted countless services from the agency over the decades and is, by far, Russia's biggest foreign customer. The revenue generated via this avenue has proven to be a big part of Russia's economy. These days, however, the Russian space industry faces a threat the likes of which it has never seen, and it's all mostly because of one plucky company. To gain a clearer picture of what Russia could lose, we must first understand where the country's space industry stands today. To this day, Russia leads the way as the country with the most state-owned launch facilities, particularly rockets. At the time of this video's publication, Russia has 6 operational launch vehicles, the bulk of which are Soyuz and Angara rockets. This is in stark contrast to NASA, which hires Roscosmos and, more recently, private companies for human spaceflight missions. Additionally, Roscosmos operates Baikonur Cosmodrome, the world's largest spaceport by area. The 6,117 square kilometer facility has 9 launch complexes boasting 15 rocket launch pads. The potential for expansion is practically infinite. Russian spacecraft also has a reputation for consistency for both crewed and non-crewed missions. Of course, the country has had its fair share of hiccups, particularly during the Soviet era, but who doesn't? Today, the Soyuz series is regarded as the most reliable spaceflight platform, with only 3 failed launches involving a crewed vehicle. With its maiden launch way back in 1966, Soyuz has been operational longer than any other spaceflight platform in the world, giving ample room for refinements in safety and durability. Roscosmos and, ultimately, Russia is also fairly cost-effective, especially when compared to America's space industry. For starters, the Russian agency does not outsource even half as much as NASA. Most collaboration between the two agencies centers around the shared ISS project. America's space shuttle, for instance, was a massive help to Russia during the assembly and stocking of the ISS. However, these days, Russia conducts most ISS-related flights in-house. Furthermore, Russia never outsources satellite launches. Another thing that helps with the cost-effectiveness of Russia's space ventures is the influence of the state over Roscosmos suppliers and manufacturers. Many of the agency's contractors are either state-owned or, at the very least, state-backed. This centralized influence helps keep the costs of developing facilities low as compared to the lobbyist-influenced American space industry. In America, contractors can fund a politician's election campaign in exchange for contracts that may have jacked up prices. However, the one thing that has created a massive boom in cost-effectiveness to the extent of profitability is renting out space launch facilities. Countries relatively new to space travel, including India, the UAE, and a few EU members, have been booking seats on Russian spacecraft at healthy rates. Russia has been instrumental in helping several nationalities traverse the cosmos for the first time. But, without a shadow of a doubt, Russia's biggest customers in this regard are the Americans. The end of the space shuttle in 2011 left NASA stranded and desperate to maintain its role as a primary presence in space. As the other half of the ISS, America has little choice but to go there. With no such problems, the Russians were able to take advantage and do some good business with their traditional space race competitors. For flights on Soyuz, for example, American astronauts have had to pay $86 million per seat, a substantial amount even by space travel standards. Experts speculate that between 2011 and 2010, NASA spent a whopping $4 billion to hitch rides to space aboard Russian rockets. In the mid-2010s, Russia had an impressive monopoly in the commercial launch market, with over half of all launches relying on Russian facilities. Of course, despite its many strengths, the Russian space industry is not without its drawbacks and critiques. The first of these is innovation. While Roscosmos has a reputation for reliability and consistency, its operations are mainly based on an "if it's not, broken don't fix it" philosophy that can hinder the development of new advancements. Furthermore, the Russian state's control over the profitability of its space contractors may serve to disincentivize private sector companies, which are often hubs of innovation. The second problem actually lies in the business model that had been serving the Russian space industry of late: transporting foreign crews and payloads to space. While they have proven to be a big money spinner in the short and medium term, these hired launches have led the country's main customers to formulate cheaper ways to get to space. America is chief among these, and its citizens and notable politicians have been highly critical of the amounts NASA shells out to Russia in order to get to space. The third and most recent problem is the political fallout from Russia's war against Ukraine. With the US and the EU staunchly in support of Ukraine, Russian industries that depended on these countries, including the space industry, have lost big customers. For years, in a bid to minimize the amount of money spent on hiring Russian facilities, NASA has been challenging America's private sector to come up with homegrown launch and transportation facilities. In response, companies like the United Launch Alliance, ULA, Blue Origin, and SpaceX have made significant strides, particularly in the last decade. Elon Musk's SpaceX managed to successfully answer the call in 2020, beginning with a crewed test flight of the company's Crew Dragon 2 spacecraft. The May 30th test flight was the first US-based flight to the ISS since the end of the Space Shuttle in 2011. SpaceX would quickly follow up the test flight with a maiden operational mission to the ISS in November of that year. Again, the mission was a success, indicating an exciting new dawn for the American space industry. The rise of SpaceX was also a pivotal development for Russia, but for a wholly different reason. Through the 2020 launches, the American company had a significant blow on Roscosmos, and it promised to deliver many more. Firstly, SpaceX flights were significantly cheaper than Soyuz flights. NASA could book flights for $55 million per seat, a massive $31 million less than what the Russians charged. At the time of this video's publishing, SpaceX's Crew Dragon has carried 29 American astronauts to space. earning just over $1 billion in under 4 years. Had those 29 astronauts boarded Soyuz, Roscosmos would have raked in just under $2.5 billion in the same period. And it's not like SpaceX only carries people. Cargo payload transport is another arena SpaceX has swept up thanks to its cheaper rates. To date, the company's Cargo Dragon spacecraft has undertaken 9 flights to the ISS, delivering NASA payloads. Again, let's not forget that this is just 4 years' worth of business lost to a company still in its infancy. SpaceX's rate of development and improvement is unprecedented by any other space organization in the 21st century. Both the Crew Dragon and Cargo Dragon are set to improve in efficiency, carrying capacity, and launch cadence. Furthermore, they will likely be joined by other spacecraft series, including Starship. If all goes well with Starship development, it will play a massive role in taking man back to the moon through NASA's Artemis program. SpaceX also seems destined to go global, helping other countries with their space projects and launches. The success of the Artemis program would doubtlessly attract other countries to undertake lunar missions, and they will most probably go there aboard SpaceX vessels. Another problem for Russia is the ongoing war in Ukraine. It is uncertain if Russia can simultaneously maintain a war effort while trying to innovate enough to remain an attractive space carrier. Lunar missions, for example, would be incredibly expensive at the best of times, let alone during a costly war. The war has also seen many of Russia's would-be customers restrict commercial dealings with the country, a move that will only harm its status as a space superpower. And the more Russia drops in space travel capacity, the more slack there will be for SpaceX and other upstarts to pick up. All in all, on current projections, Russia looks set to lose unimaginable billions to the relentless American company. On that note, we've come to the end of today's video. Thank you again for watching, and we hope you like and share the video. Hit the subscribe button to help the growth of the channel and ding the bell to keep up with more cool space content. Bye for now.